Greetings, Mavericks and new viewers. Tonight, direct and live from the Maverick News Network World Studios. This is Maverick News with Rick Walker.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Maverick News Channel. President Trump scheduled to address the nation and the world any moment now, following the overnight large-scale attack on Venezuela. We've been, from time to time, coming on live since the attacks began last night, updating you. We can tell you that Nicolas Maduro has been captured by U.S. forces. President Trump tweeting early this morning that in addition to U.S. military, U.S. law enforcement was also involved in the operation, which resulted in Maduro and his wife being kidnapped or captured, depending on your point of view, and taken to the U.S., flown out of Venezuela, where they are going to face charges in the Southern District of New York on weapons charges. They'll stand trial for narco terrorism, we are being told. Whether this comes to pass, time will tell, but that is what is being promised. We're seeing statements, posts online from prominent figures within the Trump administration, including J.D. Vance, who basically is saying that Nicolas Maduro is finding out that Trump means what he says. And we have seen for some time now Trump rattling the saber, ramping up the rhetoric, and escalating off the shore of Venezuela, off the coast of Venezuela, with a massive military buildup, with sanctions against Venezuelan oil, pursuing Venezuelan oil tankers and seizing the oil while at sea, and even the vessels carrying the oil. And Trump has said the United States will keep both the oil and the vessels. So it has been a major escalation. Where this is going to go from here, it remains anybody's guess. Justified, or the justification for this, coming from Trump's assertion that Maduro is a narco-terrorist. We've seen him blowing up boats, Trump using the military to blow up speedboats at sea that he says are narco-terrorist boats. About 100 people killed at this point. And a lot of analysis being done this morning, with experts weighing in, saying that it had to be some sort of an inside job, that the U.S. forces had to have some sort of help, potentially, in order to carry this off. Trump saying that only the U.S. military could have pulled something like this off. Is this over? Again, hard to say. It may be a one-time, one strike in and out, with explosions, missiles overnight, and attack helicopters over Caracas. Just waiting for President Trump to begin the live stream this morning from Mar-a-Lago to bring us up to date. I'm not sure exactly what to expect. I think there will be media present, so I'm expecting an address from Trump off the top, and we'll likely take some questions. The live stream is linked in. We don't, at this moment, see any actual live stream, just a slate up at the moment. So as soon as we go live, we will take you to the news conference, and it is scheduled for 11 a.m. Eastern. It is now 11:03, so it should begin at any moment. While we queue this up, wait for them to begin the broadcast, I will take a brief pause and come back on the other side with live coverage of President Trump's news conference from Mar-a-Lago as our coverage of the U.S. attack on Venezuela overnight continues.
Maverick News isn't just a news outlet, it's a community of truth seekers. Your donation at freedomreporters.com fuels our mission to report the stories that mainstream media won't touch. Thank you, Maverick family.
Okay, so we're seeing also some demonstrations both in the United States and in Venezuela, pro and con, for and against the U.S. strikes inside Venezuela. And that is one of the keys to what might transpire from this point, because we're waiting to see with bated breath what will happen to the government in Venezuela. Will this mark? Well, I guess it already has marked regime change. I think it's pretty hard to deny that that isn't one of the goals or objectives here. But who will come after Maduro? As we've seen many times in the past, when governments, superpowers become involved in these kinds of exercises, certainly historically with the United States, when there has been regime change, often what comes after is worse than what was before. So we are waiting to see. The opposition in Venezuela making statements overnight as well. And so they seem to be poised and ready to take power if it goes that way. Also talk about potentially an election being held in Venezuela. We will see. The European Union, officials of the EU overnight stating that they don't recognize or didn't recognize Maduro really as legitimate anyway. So no sympathy really coming from the European Union. I have not seen any statements as of yet from Canadian officials. In fact, I should check on that right now, see if that has changed. I'm very interested to see how they handle it. Keir Starmer from Britain, UK, saying they had nothing to do with this large-scale strike inside Venezuela and the capture of Maduro. Okay, hang on here. Let's just see if we have any statement at all this morning from Melanie Joly or the Prime Minister of Canada. I think the words, if any, that might come forward from the Canadian administration will be carefully chosen. Just scanning here to see if there's anything from Canada. I don't see anything yet. Still early in the day. And I don't think that they will be eager to comment too much on it, given the current strained relationship Canada has right now with Trump. So now 11:07, still waiting for this news conference to begin in Mar-a-Lago. Get you the latest information here. We also know that the president of Colombia has condemned this, coming out and saying that they have set up some sort of, I guess, base on the Venezuelan border. They're monitoring the situation, and the president of Colombia has posted a list of locations that were hit by the U.S. overnight. So he's concerned about the entire region, the entire Latin American region, being destabilized as a result of this. Some people also thinking that this may lead to further regime change in other Central American countries and maybe in Cuba. Marco Rubio, in many respects, kind of viewing Cuba as an extension of what has been going on in Venezuela. And for a long time, the United States has sought a regime change in Cuba as well. Certainly, most prominently displayed during the failed Bay of Pigs invasion during the John F. Kennedy administration. So still no news conference flying here. Going on here. Should be starting any moment. I know Trump also made some comments on Fox and Friends this morning. So media is there. I do see a live feed coming out at this point. Many, many, many journalists in the house and ready to rock and roll. So there will be no doubt questions that will follow his initial statement this morning. We have the official feed. We're tapped into it. We're ready to go. And again, this coming from Mar-a-Lago, not the White House today. We're also waiting to see what happens with the United Nations because overnight there was a call from Colombia and I think some other Central American, Latin American leaders for an emergency session of the United Nations. Russia also coming out and making a statement, but it seemed to be kind of soft pedaled a little bit. So it's interesting to see what's happening there too, because this really, I think, does signal uh, a major milestone in the evolution of this new world order. People think that it's all coming from the World Economic Forum or the World Health Organization, et cetera. But really, what we're witnessing here is a transformation geopolitically on a global scale. And this is, I think, really just one of the first dominoes to fall. We've talked about it quite a bit on Maverick News. And we'll continue to talk about it because everything that is in alignment with that is unfolding in real time right before us. And this effort by the U.S. military in Venezuela, which was not unexpected, was also not unexpected because it falls in line with exactly this neo-Eurasian or Duginist political philosophy and the objectives that align with the global war on liberalism and or socialism, which is the pretext really for carving the world up into spheres of dominance. And I'm not the only one talking about this. This certainly does reflect exactly that trend and objective. So still waiting for President Trump to show up here with the rest of the media in the world and you. And again, we'll take a short break while we wait for President Trump to come out and begin his address at Mar-a-Lago on the overnight attacks on Venezuela.
Maverick News. Fighting for freedom.
Okay, so we're back. So, Venezuela's opposition leader, Maria Corina Machado, says Maduro will face international justice for the atrocious crimes committed against Venezuelans. She says the time has come for popular sovereignty and national sovereignty to govern our country. That's a direct quote calling for Edmundo Gonzalez Urrutia to immediately be recognized as commander-in-chief. She goes on and says, "We have fought for years. We have given everything, and it has been worth it. What had to happen is happening," she said. "We are going to restore order, free political prisoners, build an exceptional country, and bring our children back home." And goes on to say, "To Venezuelans abroad, we need you mobilized, activating governments and citizens around the world and committing them, starting now, to the great operation of building the new Venezuela," she added. So, reaction coming in from around the world. And again, Keir Starmer out of the UK saying they had nothing to do with this. Pam Bondi saying that Maduro and his wife will stand trial in the Southern District of New York, citing charges on narco terrorism and weapons charges, saying they were in possession of machine guns and other guns that were to be used against the United States. Not sure exactly what that all means, but of course, arrested in Venezuela, then thrown on a plane, flown to the United States. The Venezuelan government saying this morning they don't know where Maduro is. They are demanding proof of life from the U.S. administration. So we're running behind here, folks. 11:15 now, still waiting for the president to show up. Okay. All right, we're firing on all cylinders. We have all the channels up and running. Everything looks good. Feed is coming in. And it's worth noting that as all of this is happening and we're getting all of this rhetoric about Maduro being arrested so he can stand trial on drug charges, the Trump administration using these repeated claims of narco terrorism to justify this action in Venezuela. Trump did just recently pardon former Honduran leader Juan Orlando Hernandez and released him from a 45-year sentence related to working with Mexico's Sinaloa cartel. And that was for cocaine smuggling. So the hand of justice not being applied evenly here, at least not in the eyes of many. So critics are saying the pardon directly contradicts Trump's messaging on drug cartels. And it came just days before elections in Honduras, where Trump endorsed the eventual victor, Nasri Asfura. Asfura and Hernandez are both members of the same conservative National Party of Honduras. And that's worth noting because, as I said, what we're witnessing here in many respects is a war on liberalism and socialism global from governments that align on these ideas as we see the rise of right-wing politics globally. And that includes Russia, which seems to be very much in alignment with the Trump administration and Donald Trump personally. But in the case of Venezuela, you have a left-wing socialist, or some would say communist, leader being targeted by the Trump administration. So there's a difference in political ideology, but the crime of drug trafficking seems to be similar, if not the same. So a double standard being employed here. So in Caracas, I guess the streets are generally bare, not too many people out, pretty much deserted, light traffic on the highways. And I guess that's typical in a way for January, but I think it's also a sign of people not knowing what's coming next and being uneasy about the entire situation there after this large-scale attack by the U.S. military, which involved missiles, explosions, attack helicopters, shots being fired, military vehicles on the streets of Caracas. And there are reports today of long lineups at pharmacies, supermarkets, as people are going about their business trying to stock up, worried about what's coming. If there is additional conflict, what will that mean? What will happen? Will they have enough supplies on hand to survive? So you're getting a run on goods at stores, essentially. Still no sign of Donald J. Trump. Now 20 minutes past. Not to worry, we've got you right here at Maverick News, so stay with us. We will have it live, guaranteed.
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News, Maverick News. Defending free speech, free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
You know, someone very profoundly once said many years ago that if fascism ever comes to America, it'll come in the name of liberalism.
Well, I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers. If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth.
The entire world is watching.
Every dictator, every crazy dictator in the world is watching. The world is watching. On TV.
The entire world is watching.
On social media.
But the entire world is watching, and yes, they are seeing what we have apparently bravely been willing to say that others are thinking.
Stand for freedom. Literally stand for freedom. Let's get this done. The entire world is watching.
We're at war with the most dangerous enemy that has ever faced mankind in his long climb from the swamp to the stars.
Maverick News. Maverick News. Maverick News.
Let me have more control of my own destiny.
The world is watching.
Okay. We do have the feed, and I am watching. I'm seeing it here, and I think we're just about ready to go. We have a full screen live video out of Mar-a-Lago now, where Trump is scheduled to address the nation and the world about this overnight attack on Venezuela. So the report was that Maduro was flown out, but it's looking now like he was taken out probably on a helicopter and then flown to the USS Iwo Jima. And he's being transported to America on the ship. And we'll probably hear more about that and get details and confirmation of that information from Trump when he finally shows up. Scheduled news conference for 11 a.m. It's now 22 minutes past the hour as we await the start of the news conference. So some legal experts, analysts saying the attack has no lawful justification. And over on the MAGA camp, I'm seeing posts from people reacting, cheering this on, happy about it, gleeful. And this coming from people who were promised and embraced the idea that Trump would get the United States into no more conflicts like this one. Same people who are against the war in Ukraine, don't want any further escalation or involvement in the Middle East, are for some reason applauding this. So it's inexplicable in many respects. Inconsistent. That's maybe the better word. Inconsistent. Okay. So we have video here of the attack. We'll bring this to you so you can so I can show you what it was like overnight. We did run some of this, quite a bit of it actually, overnight. We'll come back to it here as we await President Trump's arrival. Okay, here we go. Here we go.
Air blowing. You can still hear the planes right now. First, it felt, or it sounded like there was a huge truck or like a big plane flying around. And then there was kind of an earthquake. And then, as it was described before, explosions started happening. The sky started to lit up in orange. There was fire blowing. You can still hear the planes right now, but there hasn't been an explosion in a few minutes. Windows are shaking. Everyone's blowing up my phone. We're calling each other. People from outside of the country and inside of the country are calling each other, making sure, are you close to the explosion? What are you seeing? Everyone's on high alert. Again, nobody really knows what's going on, but we can see clearly it's getting bombarded. This is unusual for Venezuela. This is not something we're used to, honestly, on a day-to-day basis.
So that from Al Jazeera. And reaction mixed around the world. As I say, some people out on the streets, especially in the U.S., where you have people who have fled Venezuela, they're cheerful and demonstrating and cheering the removal of Maduro from power. But on the streets of Venezuela, we're also seeing people demonstrating, holding up signs and pictures of Maduro. And, there are pictures emerging of the aftermath of the attack. The U.S. military took out an anti-aircraft unit. They apparently devastated one of the military bases there, just annihilated it. And then Trump early this morning making some comments on media during the Fox and Friends show, where he certainly pays favor to that network. And he said he watched the operation like he was watching a television show, saying the speed and the violence, just noting the speed and the violence of the, it's being called by some a raid, attack, raid. Words are important for context and perspective. He says the United States is now deciding what is next for Venezuela. He says the U.S. will be very strongly involved, his words, in Venezuela's oil industry, saying that we have the greatest oil companies in the world, the biggest, the greatest, and we're going to be very much involved in it. He mentioned that, I think, last week, saying they want the oil back, saying Venezuela had stolen it. from the United States and from U.S. oil companies. He says the raid is a signal we're not going to be pushed around. Interesting perspective, isn't it? Maduro was, I guess, captured from a highly guarded fortress, according to Trump, saying that a couple of guys were hit, but they came back and they're supposed to be in pretty good shape. So I don't know what that means exactly. I think he's referring to maybe U.S. Delta Force that were involved in this. He says the U.S. will not allow anyone to take over where Maduro left off. And he says the U.S. will look at whether the leader of the opposition should lead, but acknowledged right now they have a vice president who is in charge. So I don't get the sense that Trump is positioned or is interested in pushing further with this at the moment. And the analysis that I've been hearing overnight also seems to suggest that this may be, for the moment, getting to a point where they're hitting the pause button so they can deal with Maduro, and then we'll see what happens with governance in Venezuela, whether there will be an election or someone installed or how this is going to work or play out. I don't know. Maybe we'll get more details in a moment, but it's now 30 minutes past the hour, 30 minutes past the scheduled time for Trump to begin his news conference here. So he is late. Makes me wonder if he's refining the narrative before he comes out. Okay, and this from Sky News earlier. We'll share this with you. Again, just a glimpse of what it was like overnight and the reaction from international media.
Just coming into us via the Reuters news agency, the Venezuelan government is saying that they do not know the whereabouts of President Maduro and his wife. This is according to the Vice President Rodriguez. This, according to Reuters, came in an audio message to state television, which also went on to say that Venezuela was demanding proof of life of President Maduro and his wife. So that's the Reuters news agency saying that the vice president has put an audio statement out on state television demanding proof of life of President Maduro, while saying that they do not know his whereabouts or that of his wife.
Yeah. And this is making, as a result, you have a lot of very nervous leaders, I guess. In other Latin American countries, and I'd say, even allies, America's traditional allies, worried, concerned about this. It was just days ago. Yesterday or the day before, maybe last night. I'm losing track of the days, but Maduro, in an interview, stating that the Trump administration really just interested in the resources of Venezuela, the critical minerals, the oil. Venezuela has the largest oil reserves in the world. Still not there. Yeah, legit. That's also commenting this morning. We'll bring up his post here for you. And I appreciate you guys joining me here this morning as we await the start of the news conference with President Trump. Okay. And more videos slowly coming out from last night's raid. Okay, here we go. Here's the post from Vance. Worth taking a look at. I did paraphrase from it, but let's get it right from the source and get it completely accurate. We'll just show you what he says. Right there. So that's saying the president offered multiple off-ramps, but was very clear throughout this process. The drug trafficking must stop and the stolen oil must be returned to the United States. Maduro is the newest person to find out that President Trump means what he says. Kudos to our brave special operators who pulled off a truly impressive operation. And there's the Trump overnight, or the post from Trump overnight, where he acknowledged and confirmed the large-scale attack on Venezuela, where he said the United States of America has successfully carried out a large-scale strike against Venezuela and its leader, President Nicolas Maduro, who has been, along with his wife, captured and flown out of the country. So that's where I got that information from. But then we're also seeing information that Maduro was flown to the Iwo Jima and may be on that ship right now. The operation, Trump continues to say, was done in conjunction with U.S. law enforcement. Details to follow. News conference today at 11 a.m. at Mar-a-Lago. So we are awaiting Trump's arrival. And Pam Bondi also posting and we'll show you what she said this morning. Right here. Confirming that the intention here is to have Maduro and his wife stand trial in the Southern District of New York. There it is. She says Nicolas Maduro and his wife, Celia Flores, have been indicted in the Southern District of New York. Nicolas Maduro has been charged with narco terrorism conspiracy, cocaine importation conspiracy, possession of machine guns and destructive devices, and conspiracy to possess machine guns and destructive devices against the United States. They will soon face the full wrath of American justice on American soil in American courts. On behalf of the entire U.S. DOJ, I would like to thank President Trump for having the courage to demand accountability on behalf of the American people, and a huge thank you to our brave military who conducted the incredible and highly successful mission to capture these two alleged international narco traffickers. So I don't know what the holdup is there at Mar-a-Lago, but we're now at 11:37. So the EU, the European Union, is standing by the people of Venezuela and supports a peaceful and democratic transition in the country, according to European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen. She's saying, quote, following very closely the situation in Venezuela, we stand by the people of Venezuela and support a peaceful and democratic transition. Any solution must respect international law and the UN Charter. Carefully chosen words. And Trump is confirming, I guess, did confirm earlier this morning during an interview that U.S. forces that captured Maduro did suffer some injuries, but no deaths. And again, Vance saying that the U.S. offered Maduro multiple off-ramps and he didn't take them. Okay, here we go. Do we have audio?
Appreciate you being here. Late last night and early today, at my direction, the United States Armed Forces conducted an extraordinary military operation in the capital of Venezuela. Overwhelming American military power, air, land, and sea, was used to launch a spectacular assault. And it was an assault like people have not seen since World War II. It was a force against a heavily fortified military fortress in the heart of Caracas to bring outlaw dictator Nicolas Maduro to justice. This was one of the most stunning, effective, and powerful displays of American military might and competence in American history. And if you think about it, we've done some other good ones, like the attack on Soleimani, the attack on al-Baghdadi, and the obliteration and decimation of the Iran nuclear sites just recently in an operation known as Midnight Hammer, all perfectly executed and done. No nation in the world could achieve what America achieved yesterday, or frankly, in just a short period of time. All Venezuelan military capacities were rendered powerless as the men and women of our military, working with U.S. law enforcement, successfully captured Maduro in the dead of night. It was dark. The lights of Caracas were largely turned off due to a certain expertise that we have. It was dark and it was deadly. But captured along with his wife, Celia Flores, both of whom now face American justice. Maduro and Flores have been indicted in the Southern District of New York, Jay Clayton, for their campaign of deadly narco-terrorism against the United States and its citizens. I want to thank the men and women of our military who achieved such an extraordinary success overnight with breathtaking speed, power, precision, and competence. You rarely see anything like it. You've seen some raids in this country that didn't go so well. They were an embarrassment. If you look back to Afghanistan, or if you look back to the Jimmy Carter days, they were different days. We're a respected country again, maybe like never before. These highly trained warriors, operating in collaboration with U.S. law enforcement, caught them in a very ready position. They were waiting for us. They knew we had many ships out in the sea, just sort of waiting. They knew we were coming. So they were in what's called a ready position. But they were completely overwhelmed and very quickly incapacitated. If you would have seen what I saw last night, you would have been very impressed. I'm not sure that you'll ever get to see it, but it was an incredible thing to see. Not a single American service member was killed, and not a single piece of American equipment was lost. We had many helicopters, many planes, many people involved in that fight. But think of that, not one piece of military equipment was lost, not one service member was, more importantly, killed. The United States military is the strongest and most fearsome military on the planet by far. With capabilities and skills our enemies can scarcely begin to imagine. We have the best equipment anywhere in the world. There's no equipment like what we have. And you see that even if you just look at the boats. You know, we've knocked out 97% of the drugs coming in by sea. 90%. Each boat kills on average, 25,000 people. We knocked out 97%. And those drugs mostly come from a place called Venezuela. We're going to run the country until such time as we can do a safe, proper, and judicious transition. So we don't want to be involved with having somebody else get in, and we have the same situation that we had for the last long period of years. So we are going to run the country until such time as we can do a safe, proper, can take place. So we're going to stay until such time as we're going to run it, essentially, until such time as a proper transition can take place. As everyone knows, the oil business in Venezuela has been a bust, a total bust, for a long period of time. They were pumping almost nothing by comparison to what they could have been pumping and what could have taken place. We're going to have our very large United States oil companies, the biggest anywhere in the world, go in, spend billions of dollars, fix the badly broken infrastructure, the oil infrastructure, and start making money for the country. And we are ready to stage a second and much larger attack if we need to do so. So we were prepared to do a second wave if we needed to do so. We actually assumed that a second wave would be necessary, but now it's probably not. The first wave, if you'd like to call it that, the first attack was so successful, we probably don't have to do a second, but we're prepared to do a second wave, a much bigger wave, actually. This was pinpoint, but we have a much bigger wave that probably won't have to do. This partnership of Venezuela with the United States of America, a country that everybody wants to be involved with because of what we were able to do and accomplish, will make the people of Venezuela rich, independent, and safe. And it will also make the many, many people from Venezuela that are living in the United States extremely happy. They suffered. They suffered. So much was taken from them. They're not going to suffer anymore. The illegitimate dictator Maduro was the kingpin of a vast criminal network responsible for trafficking colossal amounts of deadly and illicit drugs into the United States. As alleged in the indictment, he personally oversaw the vicious cartel known as Cartel de las Solas, which flooded our nation with lethal poison, responsible for the deaths of countless Americans, the many, many Americans. Hundreds of thousands over the years of Americans died because of him. Maduro and his wife will soon face the full might of American justice and stand trial on American soil. Right now, they're on a ship. They'll be heading to, ultimately, New York, and then a decision will be made, I assume, between New York and Miami or Florida. But we have people where the overwhelming evidence of their crimes will be presented in a court of law. And I've seen it. I've seen what we have. It's both horrible and breathtaking that something like this could have been allowed to take place. For many years after his term as president of Venezuela expired, Maduro remained in power and waged a ceaseless campaign of violence, terror, and subversion against the United States of America, threatening not only our people, but the stability of the entire region. And you all saw it. In addition to trafficking gigantic amounts of illegal drugs that inflicted untold suffering and human destruction all over the country, all over in particular the United States, Maduro sent savage and murderous gangs, including the bloodthirsty prison gang, Tren de Aragua, to terrorize American communities nationwide, and he did indeed. They were in Colorado. They took over apartment complexes. They cut the fingers off people if they called police. They were brutal, but they're not so brutal now. And I just have to congratulate our military, Pete, and everybody, and our National Guard, because the job that they've done, whether it's in Washington, D.C., where we have a totally safe city, where it was one of the most unsafe cities anywhere in the world, frankly, and now we have no crime in Washington, D.C. We haven't had a killing. We had the terrorist attack a few weeks ago, a little bit of a different kind of a threat, but we haven't had a killing in a long period of time, 6-7 months. We used to have two, on average, 2 a week in Washington, our capital. We don't have that anymore. The restaurants are opening. Everyone's happy. They're going, they're walking their daughters, they're walking their children, their wives. They walk to restaurants. Restaurants are opening all over Washington, D.C. So I want to thank the National Guard. I want to thank our military. And I want to thank law enforcement. Been amazing. And they should do it with more cities. We're doing it, as you know, and we're doing it in Memphis, Tennessee right now, and crime is down. We've just sort of started a few weeks ago, but crime is down now 77%. And the governor of Louisiana called, great person, and he wanted us to help him, as you know, in a certain very nice part of Louisiana. And we have done that. And it was a rough section, and we have crime down. I understand it's down to almost nothing already after 2.5 weeks. New Orleans, it's down to almost nothing, and we've only been there for 2.5 weeks. Can't imagine why governors wouldn't want us to help. We also helped, as you know, in Chicago, and crime went down a little bit there. We did a very small help because we had no working ability with the governor. The governor was a disaster, and the mayor was a disaster, but it knocked down crime. But we're pulling out of there. When they need us, we'll know. You'll know. You'll be writing about it. And likewise, Los Angeles, where we saved Los Angeles early on, where the head of the police department made a statement that if the federal government didn't come in, we would have lost Los Angeles. That's long after the fires. That's when they had the riots in Los Angeles. We did a great job. Got no credit for it whatsoever, but that's okay. It doesn't matter. We don't need the credit. But we'll be pulling out when they need us. They'll call, or we'll go back if we have to. We'll go back. But we did a great job in various cities. But the place that we're very proud of is Washington, D.C., because it's our nation's capital. We took it from being a crime-ridden mess to being one of the safest cities in the country. But the gangs that they sent raped, tortured, and murdered American women and children. They were in all of the cities I mentioned, Tren de Aragua. And they were sent by Maduro to terrorize our people, and now Maduro will never again be able to threaten an American citizen or anybody from Venezuela. There will no longer be threats. For years, I've highlighted the stories of those innocent Americans whose lives were so heartlessly robbed by this Venezuelan terrorist organization. Really one of the worst. One of the worst, they say the worst. Americans like 12-year-old Jocelyn Nungary from Houston. Beautiful Jocelyn Nungary, what happened to her? They, as you know, they kidnapped, assaulted, and murdered by Tren de Aragua animals. They murdered Jocelyn and left her dead under the bridge. There was a bridge a bridge that will never be the same to so many people after seeing what happened. As I've said many times, the Maduro regime emptied out their prisons, sent their worst and most violent monsters into the United States to steal American lives. And they came from mental institutions and insane asylums. They came from prisons and jails. The reason I say both, they sound similar. Actually, prisons a little bit more hostile, a little bit tougher. A mental institution isn't as tough as an insane asylum, but we got them both. They sent from their mental institutions. They sent from their jails, prisons. They were drug dealers. They were drug kingpins. They sent everybody bad into the United States, but no longer. And we have now a border where nobody gets through. In addition, Venezuela unilaterally seized and stole American oil, American assets, and American platforms, costing us billions and billions of dollars. They did this a while ago, but we never had a president that did anything about it. They took all of our property. It was our property. We built it. And we never had a president that decided to do anything about it. Instead, they fought wars that were 10,000 miles away. We built Venezuela oil industry with American talent, drive, and skill, and the socialist regime stole it from us during those previous administrations, and they stole it through force. This constituted one of the largest thefts of American property in the history of our country. Considered the largest theft of property in the history of our country. Massive oil infrastructure was taken like we were babies, and we didn't do anything about it. I would have done something about it. America will never allow foreign powers to rob our people or drive us back into and out of our own hemisphere. That's what they did. Furthermore, under the now deposed dictator Maduro, Venezuela was increasingly hosting foreign adversaries in our region and acquiring menacing offensive weapons that could threaten U.S. interests and lives. And they used those weapons last night. Potentially in league with the cartels operating along our border. All of these actions were in gross violation of the core principles of American foreign policy, dating back more than 2 centuries, and not anymore. All the way back, it dated to the Monroe Doctrines, and the Monroe Doctrine is a big deal, but we've superseded it by a lot, by a real lot. They now call it the Donroe Document. I don't know. It's Monroe Doctrine. We sort of forgot about it. It was very important, but we forgot about it. We don't forget about it anymore. Under our new national security strategy, American dominance in the Western Hemisphere will never be questioned again. Won't happen. So just in concluding, for decades, other administrations have neglected or even contributed to these growing security threats in the Western Hemisphere. Under the Trump administration, we are reasserting American power in a very powerful way in our home region. And our home region is very different than it was just a short while ago. The future will be, and we did this in my first term. We had great dominance in my first term, and we have far greater dominance right now. Everyone's coming back to us. The future will be determined by the ability to protect commerce and territory and resources that are core to national security. These are core to our national security. Just like tariffs are, they've made our country rich, and they've made our national security stronger than ever before. But these are the iron laws that have always determined global power, and we're going to keep it that way. We will secure our borders. We will stop the terrorists. We will crash the cartels, and we will defend our citizens against all threats, foreign and domestic. Other presidents may have lacked the courage or whatever to defend America, but I will never allow terrorists and criminals to operate with impunity against the United States. This extremely successful operation should serve as warning to anyone who would threaten American sovereignty or endanger American lives. Very importantly, the embargo on all Venezuelan oil remains in full effect. The American Armada remains poised in position, and the United States retains all military options until United States demands have been fully met and fully satisfied. All political and military figures in Venezuela should understand what happened to Maduro can happen to them, and it will happen to them if they aren't just, fair, even to their people. The dictator and terrorist, Maduro, is finally gone in Venezuela. People are free. They're free again. It's been a long time for them, but they're free. America is a safer nation. This morning, it's a prouder nation this morning because it didn't allow this horrible person and this country that was doing very bad things to us. It didn't allow it to happen. And the Western Hemisphere is right now a much safer place to be. So I want to thank everybody for being here. I want to thank General Raisin Kane. He's a fantastic man. I've worked with a lot of generals. I worked with some I didn't like. I worked with some I didn't respect. I worked with some that just weren't good. But this guy is fantastic. I watched last night one of the most precise attacks on sovereignty. I mean, it was an attack for justice. And I'm very proud of him, and I'm very proud of our Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, who I'm going to ask to say a few words. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Mr. President. Finally, a commander-in-chief the world respects and the American people deserve. And as the president said, words can barely capture the bravery and the power and the precision of this historic operation. A massive joint military and law enforcement raid flawlessly executed by the greatest Americans our country has to offer. American warriors are second to none, the best in the world and the best of our country. What all of us witnessed last night was sheer guts and grit, gallantry, and glory of the American warrior. I'm simply humbled by such men. And I tip my hat to our chairman, Dan Raisin Kane, and all those Americans who stood watch last night. Our warriors are the elite of America, and again, President Trump has your back. No other country on planet Earth, and it's not even close, could pull this kind of operation off. And no other president has ever shown this kind of leadership, courage, and resolve, the most powerful combination the world has ever seen. As the president said, our adversaries remain on notice. America can project our will anywhere, anytime. The coordination, the stealth, the lethality, the precision, the very long arm of American justice, all on full display in the middle of the night. Nicolas Maduro had his chance, just like Iran had their chance, until they didn't and until he didn't. He effed around, and he found out. President Trump is deadly serious about stopping the flow of gangs and violence to our country, deadly serious about stopping the flow of drugs and poison to our people, deadly serious about getting back the oil that was stolen from us, and deadly serious about reestablishing American deterrence and dominance in the Western Hemisphere. This is about the safety, security, freedom, and prosperity of the American people. This is America first. This is peace through strength. And the United States War Department is proud to help deliver it. Welcome to 2026. And under President Trump, America is back. I'd like to welcome now our chairman, Chairman Raisin Kane, to give a few more details about the operation. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Thank you, Mr. President, and good morning. Last night, on the order of the President of the United States and in support of a request from the Department of Justice, as the President said, the United States military conducted an apprehension mission in Caracas, Venezuela, to bring to justice two indicted persons, Nicolas and Cecilia Maduro. This operation, known as Operation Absolute Resolve, was discreet, precise, and conducted during the darkest hours of January 2nd and was the culmination of months of planning and rehearsal, an operation that, frankly, only the United States military could undertake. What I'd like to do this morning is talk to you through some of the preparation and the details without compromising any of our tactics, techniques, and procedures. There is always a chance that we'll be tasked to do this type of mission again. Our interagency work began months ago and built on decades of experience of integrating complex air, ground, space, and maritime operations. While the past 2 decades have honed the skills of our special operations forces, this particular mission required every component of our joint force, with soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, and Guardians working in unison with our intelligence agency partners and law enforcement teammates in an unprecedented operation. We leveraged our unmatched intelligence capabilities and our years of experience in hunting terrorists, and we could not have done this mission without the incredible work by various intelligence agencies, including the CIA, NSA, and NGA. We watched, we waited, we prepared, we remained patient and professional. This mission was meticulously planned, drawing lessons from decades of missions over the last many years, many missions over these last many years. This was an audacious operation that only the United States could do. It required the utmost of precision and integration within our joint force. And the word integration does not explain the sheer complexity of such a mission. An extraction so precise it involved more than 150 aircraft launching across the Western Hemisphere in close coordination, all coming together in time and place to layer effects for a single purpose: to get an interdiction force into downtown Caracas while maintaining the element of tactical surprise. Failure of one component of this well-oiled machine would have endangered the entire mission, and failure is never an option for America's joint force. Those in the air over Caracas last night were willing to give their lives for those on the ground and in the helicopters. Let me talk a little bit about the preparation. After months of work by our intelligence teammates to find Maduro and understand how he moved, where he lived, where he traveled, what he ate, what he wore, what were his pets, in early December, our force was set pending a series of aligned events. Key was choosing the right day to minimize the potential for civilian harm and maximize the element of surprise, and minimize the harm to the indicted personnel so, as the president said, they could be brought to justice. And as the president said earlier today, weather in Venezuela is always a factor this time of the year. And over the weeks through Christmas and New Year's, the men and women of the United States military sat ready, patiently waiting for the right triggers to be met and the president to order us into action. Last night, the weather broke just enough, clearing a path that only the most skilled aviators in the world could maneuver through. Ocean, mountain, low cloud ceilings, but when tasked with a mission, this organization does not quit. At 10:46 p.m. Eastern Time last night, the president ordered the United States military to move forward with this mission. He said to us, and we appreciate it, Mr. President, good luck and Godspeed. And those words were transmitted to the entire joint force. Over the course of the night, aircraft began launching from 20 different bases on land and sea across the Western Hemisphere. In total, more than 150 aircraft, bombers, fighters, intelligence, reconnaissance, surveillance, rotary wing were in the air last night. Thousands and thousands of hours of experience were airborne. Our youngest crew member was 20, and our oldest crew member was 49, and there's simply no match for American military might. As the night began, the helicopters took off with the extraction force, which included law enforcement officers, and began their flight into Venezuela at 100 feet above the water. As they approached Venezuelan shores, the United States began layering different effects provided by Spacecom, Cybercom, and other members of the interagency to create a pathway. Overhead, those forces were protected by aircraft from the United States Marines, the United States Navy, the United States Air Force, and the Air National Guard. The force included F-22s, F-35s, F-18s, EA-18s, E-2s, B-1 bombers, and other support aircraft, as well as numerous remotely piloted drones. As the force began to approach Caracas, the Joint Air Component began dismantling and disabling the air defense systems in Venezuela, employing weapons to ensure the safe passage of the helicopters into the target area. The goal of our air component was, and always will be to protect the helicopters and the ground force and get them to the target and get them home. As the force crossed the last point of high terrain where they'd been hiding in the clutter, we assessed that we had maintained totally the element of surprise. As the helicopter force ingressed towards the objective at low level, we arrived at Maduro's compound at 1:01 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, or 2:01 a.m. Caracas local time, and the apprehension force descended into Maduro's compound and moved with speed, precision, and discipline towards their objective, and isolated the area to ensure the safety and security of the ground force while apprehending the indicted persons. On arrival into the target area, the helicopters came under fire, and they replied with that fire with overwhelming force in self-defense. One of our aircraft was hit but remained flyable, and as the President said earlier today, all of our aircraft came home, and that aircraft remained flyable during the rest of the mission. As the operation unfolded at the compound, our air and ground intelligence teams provided real-time updates to the ground force, ensuring those forces could safely navigate the complex environment without unnecessary risk. The force remained protected by overhead tactical aviation. Maduro and his wife, both indicted, gave up and were taken into custody by the Department of Justice, assisted by our incredible U.S. military with professionalism and precision, with no loss of U.S. life. After securing the indicted persons, the force began to prep for departure. Helicopters were called in to exfiltrate the extraction force, while fighter aircraft and remotely piloted aircraft provided overhead coverage and suppressive fire. There were multiple self-defense engagements as the force began to withdraw out of Venezuela. The force successfully exfiltrated and returned to their afloat launch bases, and the force was over the water at 3:29 a.m. Eastern Standard Time with indicted persons on board. And both Maduro and his wife were embarked aboard the USS Iwo Jima. In closing, what we've witnessed today is a powerful demonstration of America's joint force. We think, we develop, we train, we rehearse, we debrief, we rehearse again and again, not to get it right, but to ensure that we cannot get it wrong. Our jobs are to integrate combat power so when the order comes, we can deliver overwhelming force at the time and the place of our choosing against any foe anywhere in the world. I am immensely proud today of our joint force and filled with gratitude to represent them here today. There is simply no mission too difficult for these incredible professionals and the families that stand by them and support them. As we stand here this morning, our forces remain in the region at a high state of readiness, prepared to project power, defend themselves, and our interests in the region. This operation is a testament to the dedication and unwavering commitment to justice and our resolve to hold accountable those who threaten peace and stability. In closing, I want to express my heartfelt gratitude to the brave men and women who executed this mission. Their courage and tireless commitment to our nation are what makes us strong. Thank you, Mr. Secretary, and thank you, Mr. President.
Well, I don't have much to add to what you've heard now, other than the following points. Nicolas Maduro was indicted in 2020 in the United States. He is not the legitimate president of Venezuela. That's not just us saying it. The first Trump administration, the Biden administration, the second Trump administration, none of those three recognized him. He's not recognized by the European Union and multiple countries around the world. He is a fugitive of American justice with a $50 million reward, which I guess we saved $50 million. And
make sure.
Yeah, exactly. But
don't let anybody claim it. Nobody deserves it but us.
But I want to be clear about one thing. Nicolas Maduro had multiple opportunities to avoid this. He was provided multiple very, very, very generous offers and chose instead to act like a wild man, chose instead to play around. And the result is what we saw tonight. The other message here is the following. You have a guy, like many people around the world, they like to play games. You have a guy who decides he's going to invite Iran into his country, is going to, do the confiscation of American oil companies, is going to flood our country with gang members, is going to take Americans prisoner and try to hold them for hostage and trade them like he was able to do with the Biden administration. Basically likes to play games all this time and thinks nothing's going to happen. And I hope what people now understand is that we have a president. The 47th president of the United States is not a game player. When he tells you that he's going to do something, when tells you he's going to address a problem, he means it. He actions it. I can tell you, I've watched this process now for 14, 15 years, been around it. Everybody talks. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. When I get there, we're going to do this. We're going to take. This is a president of action. Like, I don't understand yet how they haven't figured this out. And now, if you don't know, now you know. Because this is the way it's going to play out. And I think people need to understand that this is not a president that just talks and does letters and press conferences. And, if he says he's serious about something, he means it. And this is something that was a direct threat to the national interest of the United States, and the president addressed it. There's a president of peace, by the way. I told you what I just said earlier. This guy had multiple opportunities to find his way somewhere else and figure out another. He could have been living somewhere else right now, very happy, but instead he wanted to play big boy. And so now, he's got other sets of problems on his hands. And but I think the message here should be for the world. Look, the president doesn't go out looking for people to pick fights with. He's not generally wants to get along with everybody. We'll talk and meet with anybody, but don't play games. Don't play games with this president's in office, because it's not going to turn out well. And so I hope that I guess that lesson was learned last night, and we hope it'll be instructive moving forward.
Is that a message for Cuba, Mr. President?
Please. Well, we're going to be running it with a group, and we're going to make sure it's run properly. We're going to rebuild the oil infrastructure, which will cost billions of dollars. It'll be paid for by the oil companies directly. They will be reimbursed for what they're doing, but that's going to be paid. And we're going to get the oil flowing the way it should be. As you know, it was just a minor flow. It was actually a minor flow for what they have. But we're going to run it properly, and we're going to make sure the people of Venezuela are taken care of. We're going to make sure the people that were forced out of Venezuela by this thug are also taken care of.
President, does the U.S. running the country mean that U.S. troops will be on the ground? How will that work?
Well, they always say boots on the ground. So we're not afraid of boots on the ground if we have to have. We had boots on the ground last night at a very high level, actually. We're not afraid of it. We don't mind saying it. But we're going to make sure that that country is run properly. We're not doing this in vain. This is a very dangerous attack. This is an attack that could have gone very, very badly. Could have gone very badly. We could have lost a lot of people last night. We could have lost a lot of dignity. We could have lost a lot of equipment. The equipment is less important, but we could have lost a lot. And we're going to make sure that this is proper. We're there now. We're ready to go again if we have to. We're going to run the country right. It's going to be run very judiciously, very fairly. It's going to make a lot of money. We're going to give money to the people. We're going to reimburse people that were taken advantage of. We're going to take care of everybody. It's very important. We couldn't let them get away with it. They stole our oil. We built that whole industry there, and they just took it over like we were nothing. And we had a president that decided not to do anything about it. So we did something about it. We're late, but we did something about it. Yeah, please.
mechanism by which you're going to run the country? Are you going to designate a U.S. official
Yes,
to
yes,
coordinate?
it's all being done right now. We're designating people. We're talking to people. We're designating various people, and we're going to let you know who those people are.
Would run Venezuela?
Well, it's largely going to be for a period of time. The people that are standing right behind me, we're going to be running it. We're going to be bringing it back. It's a dead. I talk about a dead country. A year and a half ago, we were a dead country. Now we're the hottest country anywhere in the world. We're a country doing better than any country anywhere in the world, and it required leadership. Venezuela has a lot of bad people in there, a lot of bad people that shouldn't be leading. We're not going to take a chance that one of those people take over for Maduro. So you can look at, and others, we have fantastic people, including people in the military. So we're going to have a group of people running it until such time as it can be put back on track, make a lot of money for the people, and give people a great way of life, and also reimbursement for people in our country that were forced out of Venezuela.
Rubio would be.
You said earlier today that you weren't going to back Machado to come back and be the opposition leader in your Fox and Friends interview. And then you also mentioned the vice president of Venezuela. Are you going to work with the vice president of Venezuela, or how do you foresee the relationship
Well,
going?
I understand she was just sworn in, but she was, as you know, picked by Maduro. So Marco's working on that directly. He just had a conversation with her, and she's essentially willing to do what we think is necessary to make Venezuela great again. Very simple.
Mr. President, Colombian President Gustavo Petro, a couple weeks ago, he said he's got to watch his ass. And today he said he's not concerned about anything happening to him in the aftermath of this operation. So just what your message is about that.
Well, he has cocaine mills. He has factories where he makes cocaine. And, yeah, I think I stick by my first statement. He's making cocaine. They're sending it into the United States. So he does have to watch his ass.
Mr. President, did you notify any members of Congress in advance?
Marco, do you want to talk about that? Because you were involved in it.
Sure. We call members of Congress immediately after. This was not the kind of mission that you can do congressional notification on. It was a trigger-based mission in which conditions had to be met night after night. We watched and monitored that for a number of days. So it's just simply not the kind of mission you can call people and say, hey, we may do this at some point in the next 15 days. But it's largely a law enforcement function. Remember, at the end of the day, at its core, this was an arrest of 2 indicted fugitives of American justice, and the Department of War supported the Department of Justice in that job. Now, there are broader policy implications here, but it's just not the kind of mission that you can pre-notify because it endangers the mission.
Plus, if I could add one thing to that, Congress has a tendency to leak. This would not be good. If they leaked, General, I think it would have been maybe a very different result. But I have to say, they knew we were coming at some point, We had a lot of ships out there. They sort of knew we were coming. We went there. But Congress will leak, and we don't want leakers.
People to watch this all play out live. What was Maduro doing when the U.S. forces entered what I assume would be his home? And also, was there any point where the U.S. was considering if Maduro pushed back or resisted killing Maduro?
It could have happened. It could have happened. He was trying to get into a safe place. You know what a safe place is, all steel. And he wasn't able to make it to the door because our guys were so fast. They went through the opposition so fast. And there was a lot of opposition. People were wondering, do we get them by surprise? Sort of surprised, but they were waiting for something. It was a lot of opposition. There was a lot of gunfire. You saw some of it today. But he was trying to get to a safe place, which wasn't safe because we would have had the door blown up in about 47 seconds, they say on average, regardless of how thick the steel was. It was a very thick door. It was a very heavy door, but he was unable to get to that door. He made it to the door. He was unable to close it. Go ahead, finish.
To be in the time being right now. Do you know his exact
Well, eventually, ultimately, in the near future, he's going to be brought to New York.
And where is he going to be held? Where is he going to be held in New York? Do you know?
That's going to be up to the officials that do these things.
Mr. President, the U.S. has something of a mixed track record of ousting dictators without necessarily a plan for what comes afterwards.
Not with
Did
me.
that weigh on your decision?
Well, that's when we had different presidents, but with me, that's not true. With me, we've had a perfect track record of winning. We win a lot, and we win. If you look at Soleimani, you look at al-Baghdadi, you look at the Midnight Hammer. Midnight Hammer was incredible. Right now, you wouldn't have peace in the Middle East. We have essentially peace in the Middle East because of that. If we weren't successful with Midnight Hammer, you wouldn't have peace in the Middle East. So, with me, you've had a lot of victory. You've had only victories. You've had no losses. Yeah.
How long do you expect the U.S. to run Venezuela, and how soon do you want the Venezuelan people to hold elections?
So I'd like to do it quickly, but it takes a period of time. You know, we're rebuilding. We have to rebuild their whole infrastructure. The infrastructure is rotted. It's actually very dangerous. It's blow-up territory. Oil is very dangerous. It's a very dangerous thing to take out of the ground. It can kill a lot of people. It has killed a lot of people doing just that. The infrastructure is old. It's rotted. Much of it is stuff that we put there 25 years ago, and we're going to be replacing it. And we're going to take a lot of money out so that we can take care of the country. Yeah.
Are you saying that Secretary Rubio and
Mr. President, China, Russia, and Iran have interests in Venezuela. How does this operation affect your relationships with them when it comes to the oil and drugs?
In terms of China and Russia, Russia, when we get things straightened out. But in terms of other countries that want oil, we're in the oil business. We're going to sell it to them. We're not going to say we're not going to give it. In other words, we'll be selling oil probably in much larger doses because they couldn't produce very much because their infrastructure was so bad. So we'll be selling large amounts of oil to other countries, many of whom are using it now, but I would say many more will come.
Are you saying, Mr. President, are you saying that, Mr. President, are you saying that? Oh.
Mr. President, thank you. What is your message to the people of Venezuela today? Of course, the civilian population specifically, they have a lot of questions. What is your message to the people of Venezuela?
That you're going to have peace, justice. You're going to have some of the riches that you should have had for a long period of time. It was stolen from you. But you're going to have peace and you're going to have safety. You're going to have justice. You're going to have a country. You're going to have a real country. You're going to have potentially a great country. You know, if you go back 20 years, maybe even a little longer ago, that was a great country. And they destroyed it. Remember I said that if we lose this election, the United States will be Venezuela on steroids. That's what would have happened. Had we lost the election, the 2024 election, we suffered so badly when you look at the border from 2020. What they did, what Joe Biden administration did to our country should never be forgotten. But if we had to go through another year of that, we would be exactly where Venezuela was. In terms, I used to say, if they win, we're going to be Venezuela on steroids, and that's what would have happened.
President, thank you. Are you saying that Secretary Hegseth and Rubio are going to be running Venezuela, and will you be sending in U.S. military
troops to provide? They're going to be a team that's working with the people of Venezuela to make sure that we have Venezuela right. Because for us to just leave, who's going to take over? I mean, there is nobody to take over. You have a vice president who's been appointed by Maduro. And right now she's the vice president, and she's, I guess, the president. She was sworn in as president just a little while ago. She had a long conversation with Marco, and she said, we'll do whatever you need. I think she was quite gracious, but she really doesn't have a choice. We're going to have this done right. We're not going to just do this with Maduro, then leave like everybody else, leave and say, let it go to hell. If we just left, it has zero chance of ever coming back. We'll run it properly. We'll run it professionally. We'll have the greatest oil companies in the world go in and invest billions and billions of dollars and take out money, use that money in Venezuela. And the biggest beneficiary are going to be the people of Venezuela. And also, I can't stress this strongly enough, the people that got thrown out of Venezuela that are now in the United States. And frankly, some want to stay and some probably want to go back. Yeah.
The country, and were any of the detained Americans?
Well, right now they're very protected because nobody's going to mess with us. They're very protected. The people of, and we let them know that you better not touch one of them.
And are you concerned that bad elements of the Maduro regime will remain in place?
Well, we know who they are. We're on them, and they're acting much differently now than they would have acted 2 days ago. Okay, wait, behind you, please.
Mr. President, why is running a country in South America America first?
Well, I think it is because we want to surround ourselves with good neighbors. We want to surround ourselves with stability. We want to surround ourselves with energy. We have tremendous energy in that country. It's very important that we protect it. We need that for ourselves. We need that for the world. And we want to make sure we can protect it. Yes, sir. Please, go ahead.
Is there a message here for Cuba and Diaz-Canel?
Well, Cuba's an interesting case. Cuba is, not doing very well right now. That system has not been a very good one for Cuba. The people there have suffered for many, many years. And I think Cuba is going to be something we'll end up talking about because Cuba is a failing nation right now, very badly failing nation. And we want to help the people. It's very similar in the sense that we want to help the people in Cuba, but we want to also help the people that were forced out of Cuba and living in this country. Do you want to say something about that, Marco, please?
Well, I mean, I just gave you a statement a few minutes ago about, when the president speaks, you should take him seriously. So suffice it to say, Cuba is a disaster. It's run by incompetent, senile men, and in some cases, not senile, but incompetent nonetheless. It has no economy. It's in total collapse. And by the way, they were, all of the guards that helped protect Maduro, this is well known, their whole spy agency, all that were full of Cubans. I mean, it's amazing. This poor island took over Venezuela in some cases. One of the biggest problems the Venezuelans have is they have to declare independence from Cuba. They tried to basically colonize it from a security standpoint. So, yeah, look, if I lived in Havana and I was in the government, I'd be concerned, at least a little bit.
Cutting off the oil flow to Cuba from Venezuela?
Well, the president already announced a week ago that anything that's sanctioned, it's sanctioned oil, it's not going to be allowed to get there. So that's a pre-existing.
The answer is yes. Yes. No, we haven't. No, we haven't.
Mr. President.
Mr.
President, on Monday.
Oh, I think it would be very tough for her to be the leader. She doesn't have the support within or the respect within the country. She's a very nice woman, but she doesn't have the respect to be the
Mr.
leader.
President, is it possible that the U.S. ends up administrating Venezuela for years?
Well, it won't cost us anything because the money coming out of the ground is very substantial, so it's not going to cost us anything. We will. Well, we want safety there. We want to be surrounded by countries that aren't housing all of our enemies all over the world. That's what was happening, and you don't want to have that. But we're going to be rebuilding, and we're not spending money. The oil companies are going to go in. They're going to spend money. We're going to take back the oil that, frankly, we should have taken back a long time ago. A lot of money is coming out of the ground. We're going to get reimbursed for all of that. We're going to get reimbursed for everything that we spend. So it's going to be a very important. This is a very big evening that took place last night. We have to be surrounded by safe, secure countries, and we also have to have energy. Very important. We have to have energy that's real energy, not where they're getting 4% and 5% of the energy out of the ground. You take a look. It was such a disaster. So what's going to happen with Venezuela, I think, over the next period of a year, is going to be a great thing, and the people of Venezuela will be the biggest beneficiaries.
Going to send in U.S. military.
Mr. President, thank you. What did you last speak to Maduro about when you spoke? And is the
Well,
US
I don't want to get
at war
into
with
the
Venezuela?
conversations, but I did have conversations with him, and I said, you got to surrender. And I actually thought he was pretty close to doing so, but now he wished he did, yeah.
You said that Maduro is responsible for drug trafficking. You recently pardoned the former president of Honduras who was convicted of many drug trafficking. Can you explain how these two situations are different? And would you ever pardon Maduro?
I endorsed, as you know, the winning president, the man who won in Honduras. I endorsed the man who won in Chile. I endorsed the man who won in Argentina. And we are doing very well with that whole group. What the man that I pardoned was, if you could equate it to us, he was treated like the Biden administration treated a man named Trump. That didn't work out too well for them. This was a man who was persecuted very unfairly. He was the head of the country. He was persecuted very unfairly. And there are a number of them. And we felt that it was a very unfair situation that happened to him. He's also a party member of the man who won. So obviously the people liked what I did. And one of the reasons that was done is because of the fact that the party in power felt very strongly that that man was treated very badly. I studied it very quickly, and then I studied it in great detail. I went to a lot of the people standing behind me, and they felt that that man was persecuted and treated very badly. That's why I gave him a pardon.
You referenced boots on the ground earlier. Can you just sort of button this up? Do you envision the U.S. military having a presence in Venezuela as the U.S. runs that
Well,
country?
no, we're going to have a presence in Venezuela as it pertains to oil, because we have to have, we're sending our expertise in. So you may need something, not very much. But no, we're going to be taking out a tremendous amount of wealth out of the ground. And that wealth is going to the people of Venezuela and people from outside of Venezuela that used to be in Venezuela. And it goes also to the United States of America in the form of reimbursement for the damages caused us by that country. So I want to thank you all very much. Thank you. Do you have one? Yes, please. You were so nice before. I'm going to give you the final question. Go
Thank
ahead.
you, Mr.
Unless it's a
President.
bad question, in
It's
which
about
case I'll
Putin.
go one word. It's about who?
It's about Putin, if you want.
About Putin. Well, that's always nice
You had
to
a
talk
phone,
about Putin.
You had a phone call with him
Yeah.
on Monday. Did he talk at all about Maduro? Did y'all talk about this?
No, we didn't.
And
We
then,
never spoke about Maduro.
Are you mad at him right now? I mean, there's this
I'm not
intelligence.
thrilled with Putin. I'm not thrilled with Putin. He's killing too many people. I thought that would be so. I settled 8 1/4 war. You know what the 1/4 was? Thailand and Cambodia. I did it again. They broke out, and I did it in about 5 hours, and I settled it. I'm giving myself 1/4, so I'm up to now 8 1/4. In other words, I settled the war, but then they broke out. They had a pretty bad breakout over the last 4 days. I got them to go back to peace, so I only give 1/4. I thought the easiest one would be, one of the easier ones would be Russia, Ukraine. It's not, and they both have done some pretty bad things. And look, that's Biden's war. That's not my war. But I want to stop the lives. Did you see where last month 30,000? It was 27,000 the month before. 30,000, mostly soldiers, were killed this last month. 30,000. I want to stop that. You know, I got NATO to pay 5% instead of the 2% that they weren't paying. They weren't paying 2, now they pay 5. And we send them a lot of munitions. We send them a lot of things, missiles and various other things, a lot. And they pay. The United States is not losing money. We're probably making money on that. It's the last thing I care about. I just want to stop all those people. We're losing 25, 30,000 human beings that come from 2 places that are very far away. But if I can stop, because it's something I've been pretty good at doing, deals, I guess. It's all a deal. Life is a big deal. But if I can stop that war and stop 30,000 young people, in addition to the fact that people are being killed in Kiev, people are being killed in other cities throughout, a much smaller number, but they're being killed, viciously killed. So I'm not happy about it. I thought that would be something that would get solved. We have Mr. Witkoff here. I think that we're making progress, but that's a war that should have never happened. If I were president, it would have never happened. Putin says it. Everybody says it. If I were president, that would have never happened. But I inherited that war. That was Joe Biden, Zelensky, and Putin. I came into the situation, and it's a mess. And I will say this. I watched an operation last night that was so precise, that was so brilliant. I mean, it was incredible. If we had our people, like this general and our people involved, that war would not have gone on very long, that I can tell you. That war, to use an old term, that war has become a bloodbath, and we want it to get stopped. Thank you very much, everybody.
Okay, there you have it. President Trump wrapping up his news conference on the attack on Venezuela overnight. Marco Rubio really backing him up with some fairly strong comments, highlighting the indictment of Nicolas Maduro back in 2020, saying that he is a wanted fugitive from American justice, now being apprehended, captured, or some say kidnapped, and is being taken to the United States, where he will apparently stand trial on charges of narco terrorism and possession of weapons and intent to use such weapons like machine guns, as cited by Attorney General Pam Bondi, against the United States. Interesting comments, too, from Trump about the operation last night, talking about how precise it was, talking about what happened inside the residence of Maduro, where he was trying to get to a safe room or a safe place, as Trump put it, basically a giant steel vault with a very heavy steel door, and he wasn't able to get it closed before U.S. forces were able to apprehend him. Wasn't able to get the door closed. Trump saying even if he had, they would have just blown the door up. I guess the intent here was to minimize, as Trump said, civilian casualties and even protect the safety of Maduro and his wife so that they could be brought back, preferably alive, to stand trial. That's the fate that I guess awaits Maduro at this point. But some people are skeptical, some analysts saying they'll be surprised if he actually does stand trial in the United States on these charges, and pointing to what they're saying is the hypocrisy of pardoning the former leader of Honduras on cocaine charges and a 45-year sentence, Trump letting him go just a short time ago, pardoning him. So there does seem to be some inconsistency there, but drug trafficking, narco terrorism, that is the justification nonetheless, again cited during this news conference, repeating the original justification being cited for these military tactics and measures taken against the Maduro regime in Venezuela. Talking also about the conditions that Venezuelans are living under. I don't know. I don't live in Venezuela. We only have media reports to go on and accounts from people who live there. But today we are seeing some people out on the streets protesting or showing support for Maduro. In the capital, however, I guess the foot traffic and vehicle traffic on the streets is pretty thin, as people are concerned about what happened overnight. Obviously, safety concerns, and we're seeing also runs on supplies at some stores as Venezuelans flock to grocery stores and other places to stock up on life's essentials, not knowing, worrying about what might come. Basically prepping for the days and weeks ahead in the event that there is some sort of a second wave. And Trump also saying during the news conference that the U.S. forces were ready and remain ready for a second wave of attacks if necessary, but he says he doesn't think that will be needed at this point. Also asked, about the U.S. track record not being very good when it comes to regime change and ousting dictators or rulers of other countries, and then not really having a plan in place for what comes after. Trump saying, well, that's not me. I'm me, and we do have a plan, and indicating that the United States will remain, they say, where they are right now, inside Venezuela, and that a team will work with local Venezuelans to run the country until some sort of transition can take place. What will that look like? We still don't know. He says he has a plan. I'd like more details on it to really assess that. The European Union earlier today, and I think probably echoing all of this since, saying that they stand with the people of Venezuela, and that anything that happens must comply with international law. That's what they're looking for, but not really coming out with any kind of sympathy for Maduro. Earlier, some members of the EU, some leaders from the European Union, stating that they also don't really recognize Maduro and never did as a legitimate leader of the country. And Marco Rubio pointing out that the United States has not recognized Maduro, who came to power after Chavez. And you see the references to the indictment, to Maduro's longstanding warrants with the United States, being a fugitive from justice. And we just don't know what's going to happen next. We just know that the U.S. forces are still there. You do have actual boots on the ground. And Trump also indicating that the vice president is, I guess, in charge at the moment. He did indicate that, but for how long? that remains to be seen. Of course, the vice president would have been in alignment and in support of Maduro, but Trump didn't arrest the vice president, just Maduro and his wife. Very interesting day. He says it's a very, I guess, a historic night that we just went through. It doesn't look like this is going to escalate beyond this point. It looks like U.S. forces are pretty much in control there, using overwhelming force and stealth to get in there overnight and execute this apprehension, this oh, well, some say, depends on how you look at all of this. Was it justified? Trump says yes. Rubio, stating the U.S. position very clearly, but others looking at this as, a violation of sovereignty, a violation of international law, and a lot of those accusations and that view coming from other leaders in Latin America, especially the leader of Colombia, the president of Colombia, who Trump has already issued a warning to, and Trump is now accusing and has continuing to accuse the leader of Colombia of running a narco terror organization regime out of Colombia too. And he says he has to watch his what. So we don't know what will happen there either. Will this effort expand beyond Venezuela? Well, I don't know. It's very clear, though, that Trump is focused on the oil. That is absolutely one of the objectives here, if not the main objective. And he's talking about U.S. oil companies going back in there, investing in oil industry infrastructure to get the country back on track to begin extracting large amounts of oil from the ground and selling it on the world market to all countries, I guess, just putting it on the world market and selling it at the prevailing prices day to day. And that could, change people's lives in Venezuela too. And as you get investment in that industry, and it can create jobs, it depends on how it's handled. The United States consistently accused of acting in inappropriate and exploitive ways in all of these countries, or they go in. But, there is always an upside and a positive side to U.S. government or U.S. corporation, oil companies investing in the industry there too. So there's two sides to the coin. But of course, you're getting the U.S. position on this, the Trump administration perspective and their narrative, and the way that they're spinning this story today, this event. So it'll be interesting as well to take note of how others are going to analyze this, assess it, and judge it. Not just other world leaders, but also military analysts, economists, social scientists, journalists. The list goes on. The influencers, the social media influencers, and it's happening right now, even as we speak. And you're getting some of that right here, even as I inject a little bit of my opinion, both intentionally and inadvertently, through my comments here. A lot of people worried, though, a lot of leaders in Latin America wondering how far this will go. And I think that even the EU, which has been, well, you see the strained relations between the United States, the European Union, NATO countries with the United States, and that includes Canada, a lot of tension there. That's why you're seeing, I think, the words being chosen by the EU. They've been chosen very carefully. The words today chosen by the Prime Minister out of the UK, Keir Starmer, saying, that they had nothing to do with this. This was not a UK operation at all. And he hopes to speak to President Trump, I think, sometime today, but not in any way criticizing what has happened here. What's coming out of Canada, I don't know. I don't think that we've seen anything from either Foreign Affairs or from the Prime Minister's office. We'll take a quick look here and see if there's been any statement at this point. Yeah, here we go now. So, Anita Anand, looks like she has responded to some sort of questions here. Canada's Foreign Affairs Minister Anand is saying the government does not recognize any legitimacy of the Maduro regime, calling on all parties to respect international law. So she did post this on X just short time ago, after, of course, the United States extracting Nicolas Maduro from Caracas, and then, of course, Pam Bondi commenting and so on. So careful words, carefully chosen by Canada, and also, echoing that sentiment that Maduro was not the legitimate leader of Venezuela. But at the same time saying that international law must be respected. Now, here's there is a photo, I guess, that Trump has posted on Truth Social, so we'll go there now and show you what he has posted. And here it is right here. Okay, let me grab that. It's a picture of Maduro, and I have to assess this. I'm not sure what this is yet. I believe it's a photograph of Maduro on board the USS Iwo Jima. Let's bring it up here. Yeah. Right there. And his caption is Nicolas Maduro on board the USS Iwo Jima. And it looks like he's wearing handcuffs. He's holding a water bottle. And he has, I guess, hearing protection on. And shades. And a tracksuit that probably will be colored orange very soon. So very few people, if any, with really any sympathy for Nicolas Maduro, even as concerns are raised about the legitimacy, the legality, the lawfulness of this operation. Was it legal? Was it illegal? Many of Trump's political opponents domestically saying this was an illegal operation, and concerns as well about Congress not being involved in this. But then you heard in that news conference Trump saying Congress leaks. He doesn't want any leaks. And we have seen that is the case in some cases in the past, where Congress will leak out information because there are conflicting interests over there. If you have a political opponent in the Democrats, or a Democrat politician, or maybe even a Republican who's not in alignment with you these days, and they get information and then they compromise that by leaking it out, giving it to the media, or maybe even somebody who will give it to, could have given it to the Maduro government, who then gets it to Maduro, and they know what's coming. And then you could put lives at risk and undermine the entire operation and turn something into a disaster for the U.S. forces. So I totally get that too. Nevertheless, there are laws in place that have to be followed. So we'll see what's said about that through the day and through the evening tonight as well. We came on through the night to begin covering this, and we've been at it really all evening, off and on, and through the day now into the afternoon, because it's a pretty big deal and a very consequential military effort by the U.S. And no doubt about it, I mean, it was executed flawlessly. No deaths on the U.S. side. Not really any mention of potential casualties. Nobody even asking that question. Were there any deaths at all as a result of this? I'm not seeing any indication that there is that, but I would think that there must be some sort of casualty account here, because we saw missiles used, attack helicopters, explosions, fires overnight. So they were hitting pretty hard in certain areas. What exactly was destroyed still remains in question, up for dispute, but there were military bases. There are photographs out there of military hardware, including anti-aircraft defense systems that were taken out, a military base reportedly annihilated by U.S. forces overnight, and overwhelming force brought to bear here, lined up on the coast of Venezuela prior to this, sending a very clear message to the government of Venezuela. Hey, we're here. We're serious about this. You better do whatever it is that they wanted them to do in advance. So it wasn't like they didn't see it coming. I think everybody could, although there were people out there speculating that even with all of this military hardware sitting out there as part of this armada, that the Trump administration, Trump might not actually use it somehow, that it's some sort of a bluff. But I said right from the very beginning, this looks very serious, and some sort of an attack appears to be imminent. You never know what you don't know, but that's what it appeared. What appeared to be on the horizon, and indeed we got to that horizon last night. And when it went dark, the U.S. forces went in under cover of darkness, except for that full moon, which cast a glow over Venezuela last night as U.S. forces spread out and executed their operation. And again, really flawlessly. Now, we don't know how many troops are in there, how, what the manpower count is, but certainly enough at this point, I guess, to keep things secure and stable in the view of the Trump team. And a team is being established again to work with locals in order to run the country, as Trump says, until some sort of transition can take place. But I think it's fairly safe to say that whatever comes from at this point is going to be friendly to the United States. Some would say that Trump is now in a position to install the puppet government that he really wants. And I don't think that that's an unfair assessment. I think that's very accurate. I don't think it's unfair at all to say that Trump really has his sights mainly set on the oil. He said that prior to doing this. He talked about U.S. oil companies having been in there previously, investing in the country, and then being ejected by the Venezuelan government, essentially having them nationalize everything and then having the oil industry tank. And that's no doubt not just because of improper, incompetent management of the industry, but it's also because of pressure from the United States and the way that they apply economic pressure to the country, any country that really is not in alignment with U.S. interests economically or militarily or socially, or right now with this administration, even ideologically. Now, Trump is saying, that it is America first and that they have to surround themselves with countries that are, friendly and stable and safe to the United States. And that really does align with what I was saying earlier in the broadcast, and have many, many times here, that this really is part of a larger global restructuring of nation states. This is, I'm sorry to tell you, or burst your bubble if you're not following along here, but this is the New World Order. This is part of it. This is Trump asserting U.S. dominance in this sphere, the Western sphere, the North American, South American, Central American sphere. This is the area of dominance for the United States now. And that's why you're not going to see Russia get too heavily involved in this, or even Iran for that matter, even though they did send weapons in there and they are an ally of Venezuela. They're not going to intervene here too much because this is in Trump's backyard. That's also why this is, in a way, bad news or a bad revelation, I think, for Ukraine, because this shows you that Putin's largely going to stay out of here, but Trump, in turn, is not going to invest too much militarily in Ukraine. He's not interested because that's in Putin's backyard. That's for the EU and Russia to work out on their own. He doesn't really care. This is, another step toward redefining relationships internationally. This is the end of, I think quite rightly, as assessed by some of the political scientists and analysts out there, just even overnight, saying this signals the end to the international rules-based order in a very substantial way. This is one of the first major developments or events that has transpired to indicate that that is the case. Because the Trump administration has just gone in there, they've just asserted their dominance, their might, and they're putting in a government that they want in place, and they're really not getting much, if any, pushback from any other country around the world, and certainly not from Russia, and China basically just doesn't care. They're staying out of this. They wouldn't have become involved in it anyway. But they will look at this, and this is bad news, I think, for Taiwan. Because of the Trump administration's behavior here, China will use that as ammunition to argue for justification in what they want to do in Taiwan. And that's going to be difficult for Trump to defend morally or ethically. Not that he necessarily cares about either of those things, but it will be difficult for the United States to defend any action to defend Taiwan, given what we're just witnessing here now in Venezuela. And what Trump is doing really in this entire hemisphere. Greenland, Panama, Canada, 51. That's why you're seeing Anita Anand this afternoon being very careful with what she says, saying, "Oh, we didn't really recognize Maduro anyway." So they're not coming out to support him. And I don't blame Canada for doing that at all. And I think that there's some truth in that. So that is a legitimate point of view and a legitimate stance to take. Nevertheless, the EU saying that, they stand with the people of Venezuela and that international law must prevail. So we will see what happens with regard to that. Now, is it lawful, legal for the United States to go in and do what it did? I don't think it matters at this point because, well, it matters, but it doesn't matter because the United States is so powerful, they don't have to listen to anybody anyway. And Trump has made that very clear. They're not complying. They're not interested in international rules or an international rules-based order anymore. This is America first. They're going to do what they want. They're using the might and efficiency of the U.S. military to just throw their weight around and do whatever they want anywhere they want. But they have this sort of unwritten rule, I think, that they think is going to lead to world peace, where it's like, okay, Russia, you stay out of our backyard, we'll stay out of yours. That's really, I think, at the heart of it, the real thought process behind all of this stuff. But as I pointed out, when you take that position, it's where, all of Eurasia belongs to Russia. They can just do whatever they want, just leave them alone. And then over here, the United States can do whatever they want with these countries. Well, over in Eurasia, Putin has a different kind of scenario because he has countries that are far more powerful lined up in Europe than, say, Trump is facing over here in this part of the world. Because certainly I don't think there's any country in this hemisphere that, in the Americas that can stand up to the United States militarily at all. And strangely, you might think that Canada's in that position, that we have nothing to stand up to the United States with, but I think that we have some creative things that we have been using, can continue to use, and we have alliances that are complicated that will sort of protect us from a fate that we've just seen that would be similar to what we just witnessed down in Venezuela. And the alliance that we have, of course, is with the UK. We have strong ties with Europe, with France. There's a history there, even with Quebec. So it's not. I don't think it's as simple a scenario as some people might think for having the U.S. come up here to. And I've heard people say it. You've heard people too talking about, well, we need the United States to come up here and liberate us or save us. And when people are talking like that, make no mistake, they are serious about those things. I personally think it's totally freaking insane, and because these descriptions of Canada as a communist regime or a hub of illegal drugs that is being used to funnel massive amounts of fentanyl into the United States, these are manufactured narratives. We certainly have a government that is left-wing, socialist in many, many respects, but also dedicated to the free market. And I wouldn't say Canada is, we're somewhat more socialistic than the United States, but our economies are so similar in so many ways. We just have taxes that are a bit higher here in Canada and more social programs, more social safety nets. I think sometimes people in the United States are jealous of that and would like more of that Canadian kind of health care. But there are problems with that too. There are pros and cons to the Canadian healthcare system. Anyway, I digress. Just pointing out that Canada's under a lot of pressure here, and what happened in Venezuela is related to everything else going on geopolitically, and certainly what happened in Venezuela last night. Also sending a message to the regime in Iran, where we've seen just, in the last 2 days, massive protests turning violent and some death even in the streets in Iran. And Trump coming out was it yesterday, saying that if Iran responds and if they start killing protesters, if any protesters are killed, the United States will intervene and they will support the protesters. That to me sends a message that should be loud and clear, that those protests are not entirely organic, and that very likely the CIA in the United States is involved to some degree in amplifying those protests through propaganda, information warfare, social media campaigns, and the like, in order to convince more and more people to go out and protest. Take note of that and remember that as we move forward further into 2026, Canadians, because there's a lot of that going on right here in this country from many different governments and political interests, foreign and domestic, and multiple foreign actors playing that game in order to influence what you think and how you act. Act responsibly and think critically and stay peaceful and be smart and don't get sucked in. That's my advice. You do as you please. But just remember that what you're seeing is not always necessarily the truth, and that there might be a kernel of truth in it, but a lot of it is biased, slanted, and ginned up, rigged information to make you think a particular way. And we've seen, even in Venezuela, there's been lots of that going on too. Trump indicating many weeks ago that the CIA has been inside Venezuela for some time, conducting an operation, and it's been clearly aimed at regime change. So there was a lot of preparatory work down in Venezuela prior to what we just witnessed last night. That was the public, the forward-facing part of all of this. But there has been all kinds of covert activity going on in Venezuela for, I would say, probably years, and certainly ramped up under Trump over the last number of weeks, and heavy duty over the past few days, translating into this massive operation, this large-scale attack last night. And there you have it. That's the way it is on this, what is it, January 3rd today, 2026. What a way to kick off the new year. First business day back, and it's pretty clear Trump meant business down in Venezuela. And it is all about business, really largely, because it is about oil. It's about critical minerals. It's about bringing back those U.S. companies, those U.S. corporations, those big U.S. oil companies to go down there and start extracting the black gold from the earth. Start selling it well, Trump says it's for the world. No, it's for the United States. It's America first. They'll take that oil. And he's always talked about just taking the oil. He says, if he'd been in charge, he would have taken the oil out of the Middle East. And that's what he's doing right here in Venezuela. And that's in his backyard. So he feels he's entitled to it, that he already owns it, essentially, saying, even J.D. Vance echoing what Trump said before, that Venezuela stole the oil, even though it's in Venezuela, under Venezuelan dirt. But then I think they're citing the old contracts that the oil companies had with Venezuela, and then you had the nationalization and the purging of the U.S. oil interests out of the country, and then things have not gone well since then. Because when you do that, you're committing a sin. A political sin, a geopolitical sin. You got to share the oil with the United States. And here in Canada, we already do have pipelines running right down in there to the United States. So, we're friendly. We're allies. We're your friends. We're sibling. So please be gentle. We're not such bad people. And even Carney, just take it easy on the guy. He's a capitalist. You're a capitalist. It's down there. Whatever happens, let's just stay peaceful out there. And great to have the audience here. Record number of people watching on our Twitter channels, this live stream. And we're doing okay on the other channels as well. So I appreciate the support that way. Just, everybody watching, please like, share, and subscribe if you haven't already, regardless of where you're watching, on Twitter, X, Twitch, or DLive, or any of the Rumble channels, YouTube, obviously, and other platforms as well. Sometimes on Facebook. We don't focus too much on Facebook. They just, I don't know. We don't get along so great at times over on Facebook. They just don't seem to like the content, maybe because, I have theories about that, but that being said, we're doing okay. So that gets us now to, 1:09 p.m. on January 3rd, 2026. What an eventful night. Up early this morning, phone rang. Rick, the U.S. is dropping bombs on Venezuela. Had to wake up, get up, started posting stuff online, set up the live stream, started broadcasting. It was history on the run, news unfolding in real time, history being made. And we shared it with you last night, overnight, as we brought you some of the live feeds from Venezuela. And then as we got into the morning, the analysis of what was going on. Now the news conference with Trump, and now more analysis. And so there will be plenty of that before we get to our main Maverick News broadcast tonight at 7 p.m. But I will be assessing between now and then. Maybe we'll do a call-in show tonight. That might be interesting. Get people to reflect on this, share thoughts on it and their analysis. I'll see if I can maybe line up a guest for tonight's program who can bring a broader perspective to this and some deeper insight into what's been going on down in Venezuela. We'll see who we can line up between now and 7 p.m. So really appreciate you guys again. Thank you for supporting us simply by watching. Please like, share, subscribe. And I'll be back here live, 7 p.m. Eastern tonight. What am I going to leave you with here at the end? How about this? Just one of our standard old favorites. I'll see you guys back here, 7 p.m. Eastern. On the flip side, Cosmo, my dog, my best friend. Take it away.
Well, I heard old Cosmo howling last night up on the hill where the moon shines so bright. He was singing a tune, lonesome dogs cry about freedom, running and touching the sky. If I leave here tomorrow, would you still remember me? Cosmo's free.
This has been a Maverick Multimedia production.